Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive 2,500-year epic tug-of-war. We're talking about the ultimate battle between the external concept of reality and the internal concept of the self. Over the next few minutes, we're going to zoom all the way out to the infinite cosmos and then pull the camera right back down into your own radical individual freedom. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so here's what we're looking at. Reality versus the self. A 2,500-year philosophical journey. This is a massive pendulum swing of human thought, from the ancient Greeks looking up at the stars to the modern existentialists staring deep into the mirror.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be moving through 5 stages. From cosmos to the human, the classical peak, the rise of reason, the materialist turn, and finally, the existentialist rebellion.
Section 1. From cosmos to the human, ancient Greek origins.
Think of this timeline as our visual syllabus. We're mapping out humanity's relentless search for truth. And notice that radical shift right there in the 6th century BC. Before this, if there was a thunderstorm, people just blamed Zeus, right? But then, these early thinkers started demanding critical, evidence-based reasoning. They wanted structural, natural causes instead of mythological stories. And honestly, that shift permanently changed how we inquire about reality. It literally set the stage for thousands of years of debate.
So these pre-Socratic thinkers introduced a concept called the Arche. Well, what is that? You can think of the Arche as the universe's ultimate source code. These guys were basically the world's first theoretical physicists, desperately trying to hack reality to find that one single natural principle that everything else is built from.
And the debates they had about what this source code actually was are absolutely fascinating. Thales looks around, sees that water sustains life, and goes, okay, the source code must be water. Anaximenes argued it was air, transforming through density. But Anaximander, who is actually Thales' student, he goes totally abstract. He realized, hey, if everything is just water, it would overpower the other elements and just destroy the cosmic balance. So he proposed the aporon, which is this boundless, infinite, formless substance that everything is born from and eventually returns to. They weren't just taking wild guesses here. They were literally inventing the framework for the scientific method.
But then, the sophists show up and completely flip the script. Protagoras shifted the focus entirely away from external nature and pointed it directly at human perception. Man is the measure of all things. He's arguing that truth isn't objective at all, it's entirely subjective. Think about it. If the wind is blowing and you feel cold, but I feel warm, who's right? Protagoras says we both are. The truth is relative to whoever is doing the perceiving. So, that search for a universal cosmic source code suddenly replaced by the incredibly messy reality of human opinion.
Which brings us to Section 2, the classical peak, Plato versus Aristotle.
We absolutely have to talk about Plato and Aristotle. It's the ultimate philosophical heavyweight bout. Here's a great way to think about it. Plato believed the true essence of things existed in a totally separate, perfect realm. His transcendent forms are basically perfect, uncorrupted files stored way up in cloud storage. The physical world we actually see, just a flawed, glitchy download. But his student, Aristotle, he brings philosophy entirely back down to earth. Aristotle argued for immanent forms. He's saying, no, the essence of a thing isn't up in the cloud. It's saved locally. It's on the hard drive right inside the physical object itself.
And that leads us to a crucial point, Aristotle's concept of hylomorphism. He argued that every single thing in reality is a combination of matter, the physical stuff, and form, which is the blueprint. And because that blueprint is inside the object, everything has an inherent potential. Aristotle called this telos, a drive toward its natural purpose right here in the physical world. An acorn naturally has the internal code to become an oak tree. Reality isn't split into 2 separate realms. It's a single, purposeful, constantly developing system.
Moving right along to Section 3, the rise of reason, the rationalists.
Fast forward past the Middle Ages, and the pendulum violently swings back toward massive logical systems. René Descartes famously used radical doubt to arrive at his core truth, I think, therefore I am. He divided reality into 2 totally distinct substances, the thinking mind and the physical body. But then Baruch Spinoza looks at this dualism and says, no way, that's way too messy. Spinoza countered with monism, famously declaring Deus sive natura, God or nature. For Spinoza, there is only one infinite deterministic substance. Mind and body, they aren't separate things at all. They're just parallel attributes, literally 2 sides of the exact same coin.
Then, in the 19th century, Hegel comes along and gives reality a massive software update. He introduces his idealist dialectic. Hegel argued that reality isn't static, it's a dynamic, historical process, driven by a universal spirit, or Geist. Basically, human history progresses through a clash of ideas. You start with a thesis, an initial idea. That inevitably generates its conflict, the antithesis. The two clash, and boom, out of the rubble emerges a synthesis, a brand new, higher level of understanding. For Hegel, reality is this grand, rational progression toward ultimate freedom.
Section 4. The Materialist Turn. The Hardware Reboot.
So, if Hegel provided a software update based on abstract ideas and spirit, the mid-19th century was about to deliver a radical physical hardware reboot. Hegel's highly interconnected philosophy actually became the fundamental forerunner for a completely new sociopolitical framework developed by Karl Marx.
Marx studied Hegel incredibly closely, but he saw a massive flaw in focusing only on abstract ideas. So he took Hegel's dialectical engine, that whole process of thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and he flipped it completely upside down. Marx argued that it's absolutely not ideas or some abstract spirit driving history. It's matter. It's material conditions, economics, modes of production, and class struggle. For Marx, your consciousness doesn't determine your reality, your economic reality determines your consciousness. He replaced all that idealism with strict materialism, analyzing the tangible forces shaping human society from the ground up.
And finally, Section 5, the Existentialist Rebellion, the Lived Reality.
After decades of these grand, overarching systems, whether they were driven by Hegel's spirit or Marx's economics, the pendulum swings back with violent force. The camera zooms entirely away from objective systems and pushes right into the messy, subjective, lived reality of the individual. Enter the existentialists. Soren Kierkegaard looked at Hegel's massive logical systems and basically said, look, this is completely useless for actually living a human life. He argued that life cannot be perfectly rationalized in a textbook. True existence requires subjective truth. It requires confronting anxiety and ultimately making a radical leap of faith. You aren't just a cog in some historical machine, you are an individual who has to choose.
Friedrich Nietzsche took this rebellion even further. He took a metaphorical sledgehammer to traditional morality. When Nietzsche wrote, "God is dead," he didn't just mean religion. He meant that the old external systems that handed us objective values had totally collapsed. But here's the catch. Instead of falling into despair, Nietzsche replaced those somber systems with this wild, Dionysian joy. He championed the will to power, demanding that you, the individual, rise up, embrace life's struggles, and creatively forge your own unique values straight out of the chaos.
And that brings us to our final destination with the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. He gave us the ultimate existentialist catchphrase, existence precedes essence. Remember Aristotle's acorn with its built-in code? Sartre says, yeah, humans are not like that. You are not born with a pre-programmed source code or a destined purpose. You simply exist first. You show up entirely blank. And because of that, you are condemned to be free. You must define your own essence purely through your actions and your choices. No excuses. There's no predefined blueprint to fall back on. So, we have traveled a seriously long way. We've zoomed from the infinite, boundless cosmos of the ancient Greeks all the way through the towering rational and material systems of history, right down into the terrifying, exhilarating freedom of your own mind. The grand systems have been completely pulled back to reveal just you, making choices. So the ultimate question this explainer leaves you with is this: what will you do with your radical freedom? How will you define your reality?